to do that replication analysis. So thank you very, very much. Big thumbs up for that. Really happy with that. Okay, so this is, and you're going to this is it's a little bit hilarious in the fact that I have no idea these things have been going on, but over the last several years, these weird kind of siphons have appeared. It's saying here, he's calling it a nuclear siphon, and you'll understand why in a minute. The nuclear siphon lifts water from a lower level to a higher one while expending energy, which is extracted from the nuclei. For this reason, and I do agree that it may be extracted from the nuclei, whether it's his understanding, which could be how it's occurring, or it might be the modified understanding, taking the hidden energy out of the matter that I would refer to, but as a potential other option. For this reason, the siphon is called nuclear. The existence of such siphons in nature is based on thousands of videos demonstrating the upward movement of water using passive siphon-like devices. The assumption that the source of energy is nuclear energy was confirmed in 2024 after the publication of an article by researchers from Taiwan in an authoritative international journal. The article reports that when studying water after cavitation using mass spectral analysis, the presence of neon-22 was detected. That is, water cavitation is accompanied by nuclear reactions with the release of excess energy. 100%. Thank you very much, Black Tie, for the £20. That's very, very helpful. I do agree that there are nuclear reactions in the Binge-Ren-Huang reactor. I think that is conclusively shown by the flux capacitor presentation that I gave, where I had analyzed his DHX-2 reactor and also the other reactor. So he's replicated his work. It's already replicated, and it's showing that it does the same sacred geometry, wheel within wheel within wheel process to both capture matter and transmute it. And the reactions would lead to a net energy gain. So certainly what we showed in the original paper point to that in that direction, but since the evidence has become much, much stronger and supported obviously by people Leclerc and Kladoff and so forth. Okay. So, since the nature of the excess energy has become known, it became possible to analyze the phenomena in siphons responsible for the upward flow of water. It was shown that a decrease in water pressure in a siphon at maximum height leads to the formation of cavitation bubbles and the appearance of excess energy as a result of nuclear reactions in such bubbles. Based on the presented experimental data, it is shown that if at the initial moment water is forced to move upwards in a nuclear siphon at a certain speed, then such a siphon can ensure the rise of water upward indefinitely due to the nuclear energy extracted by air bubbles in the region located near the maximum height of the siphon. Thank you very much, TP Sven. That's very, very generous. That really will help. And all you guys, you're going to get credited for, let's see if it proves itself, but hopefully when we do that analysis we will see the replication of the Vega Valley. I think that will be a real moment. Okay, so in recent years the internet has been filled with thousands of videos demonstrating how in one way or another water is supplied from a reservoir through pipes to a certain height without using visible energy sources. In this case, the law of conservation of energy is clearly violated, since the potential energy of the Earth's gravitational field increases. Unfortunately, the scientific community does not pay attention to these videos, believing that they are fakes. In many cases, this is true. However, there are many videos that require explanation. Below such an attempt is made for several videos, keeping in mind that in 2024, researchers from Taiwan published an article in an authoritative journal which presents the results of studies of water cavitation phenomena, from which it follows that water cavitation is accompanied by nuclear reactions resulting in the emergence of new elements, in particular 22 neon. As a result of the research in recent years, it has been established that the term cavitation bubble, when taken literally as the adjective cavitation in the cases under consideration can lead to a misunderstanding of the conditions of its origin and the physical properties of the bubble responsible for the occurrence of nuclear reactions. Although this term is also used in the analysis of the properties of bubbles that arise during acoustic cavitation, however, the study of the phenomena of single bubble sonoluminescence has shown that a cavitation bubble is not a void, but a complex formation consisting of heated gas and the light emitted by it. The light is circulating along the surface of the bubble. Okay, so this is their theory. So obviously they have an understanding of how a cavitation bubble is working, at least in some aspects. And so they feel that this is a support for that. But if you just put it an aside to say that somehow there is some energy. Thank you, Bo Sinclair. Very, very kind of you. We're really pumping up the chance of getting this done in a short order. Thank you very much. So this is, I agree that energy is being extracted from matter in the process that is leading to what he's calling a nuclear siphon, this upward projection of water. But I don't necessarily think that the cavitation is extreme enough in this instance to result in the nuclear level energy. I think it might be the extraction of chi or charge clusters or the hidden energy within matter by the toroidal moment. But we'll talk about this later. So the release of gas bubbles from water can be observed when uncorking a bottle of carbonated water. Okay, so there's some natural thing here. It turned out that such bubbles belong to the world of circulating light, which also includes natural ball lightning. Okay, so circulating light is one way of describing the toroidal moment electromagnetic structure. Okay, so if you have an electromagnetic wave circulating round, then that would lead to the same kind of thing. So we're in the sort of same ballpark here. It has been shown that circulating light in the shell of ball lightning creates unique physical conditions in the thin spherical shells of compressed air where it circulates. The air is compressed to such an extent that its density is comparable to the density of water, and the gas molecules are packed so tightly that there are no fluctuations in the air density responsible for the molecular light scattering and for the lifetime of the light in ball lightning, which is 3 orders of magnitude longer than the lifetime of sunlight in the Earth's atmosphere. It can be expected that such conditions are favorable for the occurrence of energy exchange between neighboring tightly compressed atoms. Such exchange can be accompanied by nuclear reactions with the release of nuclear energy in thermal form. Okay. Since the nature of the excess energy has become known, it has become possible to analyze the phenomena accompanying the appearance of excess energy, in particular, phenomena in devices that provide a flow of water upward. It has been established that conditions are created for reducing water pressure under which the appearance of cavitation bubbles and excess energy is possible. Such a reduction in water pressure always takes place without additional efforts in various modifications of siphons. Okay. Not only is this interesting from the point of view that it's citing the paper and it relies on that as a basis for explaining these things that appear to be able to be easily to replicate, I had literally just finished installing the water system for one Jordan Collins to come over and help work on the Matsumoto archive, and he arrived on Friday. And I was just shocked because every single skill that you require to create one of these nuclear siphons, so-called, and the actual specific non-return valves that are necessary as part of them, I had been installing in the previous 2 weeks. Call it serendipity, call it coincidence, whatever. But when I look at these things, I completely understand it, and it's not hard to understand. I think you're going to understand it as well. Okay. So I'm just going to skip forward. He goes known properties of siphons, and he says that basically you get here and you have a pressure differential, of course, and then it goes from the top to the bottom. The B here is using a nuclear siphon where somehow the water goes from a lower level up to a higher level. Okay? Right. So it explains here, and you can go and read this paper. I will give the links in the blog afterwards. You might be able to find it on ResearchGate if you just type in the word nuclear siphon or the phrase nuclear siphon. Very well explained, all of these diagrams going on here. So if we take the description of B, everyone hopefully should know how a normal siphon works. However, numerous videos on the internet show a surprising situation in which water flows from a low level to an upper level using passive devices of various designs, including an ordinary pipe in which the liquid flow from the lower level to the upper level was initially provided as shown in figure 1b. It is known that this cannot be since it violates the law of conservation of energy. Potential energy increases when the water rises up without visible sources of energy responsible for such an increase. However, there are invisible sources of energy in the form of nuclear energy. The siphon is called nuclear because it extracts energy to raise water from nuclei. Several questions immediately arise. How does it do this? Nuclear energy is extracted in the form of heat. How does the siphon convert this energy into mechanical energy? How does the mechanical energy help raise the water upwards? It would seem that there is no reasonable answer to any of these questions. Nature has posed another riddle. It turns out the solution to which is simpler than it seems at first glance. Below is an attempt to answer these questions. Right. Let's start with the simplest example, where water flows out of a vessel through a tube of height h, as shown in figure 2. Okay, I'm going to have to zoom this down a bit. In fact, I might just abbreviate this. There's only a few spelling errors in this. It's excellently written. It's very easy to follow. Okay, I'm going to be able to see everything? I don't know. Maybe I can put up two pages at a time. 2-page view. There we go. Oh, it's got the wrong pages viewing. That's not very helpful, is it? Oh dear. Okay, let's start with the simplest siphon, where the water flows out of the vessel through a tube of height h. That's h. As shown in figure 2, the outlet diameters for the case is the same without taking into account losses. Regardless of the outlet diameters, water in all cases flows out with the same speed, v, which is equal to 2gh, where g is the acceleration of gravity. Okay, so far nothing new has been given regarding to the properties of a siphon. New information arises when discussing the problem of how to make a water siphon flow in the opposite direction. Anyway, he goes into the venturi here, and he talks about the forces in the venturi, and of course we know that the venturi is in the heating system that produces solitons from two rarefaction impacts, rarefaction pulses, prior to going into the venturi. That produces a soliton, a nascent soliton. As it comes through here, that expands into a cavitation bubble in the center of the stream. And he is explaining here how the forces lead to the cavitation energy release, producing a net force forward rather than backward because of the restriction here. And it's even more extreme in the nuclear siphons. He says a same kind of thing as you see in the venturi, where the water is forced to go through here fast and then it slows down, causing a drop in pressure and the formation of the bubbles. I'm referring to the Popotov patterns. The Popotov patterns are a certified by lab, a heat generating cavitation driven system, which I talked about in my ultra experiment a few years back in Azizi, and it produces the cavitation in the stream. That's why it's very good at not damaging the actual surrounding area. He's saying that in a simply joined pipe like this, you again have a point where you get a differential forces going on, so you get a net forward pulse. But typically in these devices, and he shows video links to a whole number of these devices, okay? And essentially, it's very well described. You fill up this container here with water, and it pulls down on this chamber as the water is draining out of it until this much thinner tube, the drop in pressure in here is high enough, the negative pressure in here, the vacuum that's produced by the water coming out under gravity through this much larger bore here, okay? So you have a much larger bore here. Water in this cavity comes out, goes into this bore. The thin tube here allows for the water to be sucked up here until you get an equilibrium between the water coming out here and going in here. And the net difference is made by the pressure drop, the Venturi effect, causing cavitation bubbles that push back on a one-way valve at the bottom. So when the bubble occurs, the heat is produced and it pushes back against the whole column of the water and pushes some water forward. So that is where the energy is generated and causes the net movement forward. This is a very, very serious player from the Russian Academy of Sciences who's done a very serious paper analyzing these devices. Okay, so the compressor diagram is shown in figure 6. Here, a long tube is inserted into the water. So this is the long tube here. 1 in the well. So this is the water in the well, which ends with a check valve 3. This is the check valve. This is something that I've been using quite a lot of in setting up the water system in the place where I set up the water system. And that lets the water flow upwards. So the check valve, it's a non-return valve, so the water can come in and not go out. Okay. Before connecting to tube 2 to tube 4 up here, tube 2 is filled with water in the standard way by shaking the tube 2 in the water in the well. So basically you have this separated here and you push down rapidly and lift up, push down rapidly and lift up, and it pumps water effectively. It's like a hand pump on a tube until it's reached the top level. So you pre-prime the pump effectively by filling the water column here. Okay. Container 5, this one here, the big blue one I showed you above, in the form of an ordinary transparent bottle made of plastic, is filled with water through funnel 6 here, and then there's another valve here to shut that off, and open valve 7 with valve 8 closed, the outflow here. Okay. After bottle 5 is completely filled, valve 7 closes. I don't know if you can see both of these on the page. And water begins to pour out. The air pressure in the bottle between the water level in the bottle and the neck decreases. The same pressure is created in tubes 2, 4 and 10. So 2, 4 and 10. So the pressure drop occurs in here. This leads to a rise in the water level in tube 2. So it starts to pull this up. So remember, we've already pre-primed it up to this level. And this causes a pressure drop here, which forces the water over the top, because you've got atmospheric air pressure pushing down on here. Okay. This leads to a rise in the water level in tube 2. As the water flows out, the vacuum increases and the water level in tube 2 rises. The situation occurs when the bottle begins to deform due to external atmospheric pressure. Since the air pressure inside the bottle is less than the atmospheric pressure by the value of the water column in the bottle, water continues to pour out and the water in level in tube 2 continues to rise. There comes a moment when air begins to penetrate in the bottle through open valve 8. So open valve 8, there's some air that comes through because of the air pressure differential. And so you get a mixed fluid gas situation in there. This is noticeable by the bubbles that come out into the water 5 and rise up. A further operation of the device can be explained as follows. When the pressure in the tube 9 decreases, so pressure in tube 9 here decreases, conditions favorable for the formation of air bubbles arise at the outlet of the water from the bottle. These bubbles getting into the expanding part of tube 9 are compressed and nuclear reaction occurs in them, which leads to an increase in the speed of the outflowing water. So you get a speed increase coming out here, or where is it in the other part of the system. You can notice the moment when the stream of water appears from the vertical tube 10. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he goes through several of these videos, the ones that are more plausible. And you can see here, in this case, they've got a big vessel here, but they've also got these vacuum bottles on here. This is another analysis of a variant on the one above. And so he goes through various variations. In this one, which is quite nice, this one here, they have a large tank here going into a well through a small bore tube here. Okay. And a a fat outlet, and they actually put a membrane on the top, which is see-through, a polymer membrane, and you can see it very, very substantially suck down. Okay, so it's creating the same vacuum effect, but this is quite simple by comparison. And this is, this is another very simple one. But like, I would encourage you to go and have a look at this. This for me is one of my favorite ones because I think this is the one we might attempt to replicate. It's really rather simple, and this guy has done a wide variety of these same things. This is different in that he forces the vacuum in this tube to create the initial effect, and it's not so plausible. But like I say, there's a wide variety of these things. You can clearly see the pipe here, and one might argue there's some sort of pump in here and so forth. But it's not hard to build these things. I know all the skills to do it, having just done it the last 2 weeks. So I think we might attempt this with Jordan just for shits and giggles. Okay, so I'm going to show this video here because you get to see him build it. Okay, and there's one thing about having electricity, and there's one thing about having heat when it's cold and cold when it's hot, and those kind of things. Those are transformative. But actually, before you even can eat, you've got to be well watered. And this technology, if realizable, and can raise water up to a certain amount above the base level, then if you were to have a whole sequence of these things, then you could cascade them up and raise water to a higher reservoir level, and then use the water flowing back to the lower reservoir level like a pumped storage system to generate electricity. And by scaling the whole thing appropriately, you could basically end up with free electricity just using a standard generator. So this is a little bit comical, and I would probably have been skeptical if it hasn't been so beautifully described by this particular author. And he gives loads of other different links here. But I'm just going to play this video up here because I think it's one of the nicer ones. Let's see if we can get this to do its job here. We're going to get anything here? Let's come up somewhere. I don't know where it's come up. No. Copy link location. We'll do this manually. Let the adverts clear. Okay, so here you can see the device. It's going to let me show it. So, just before I move forward, the check valve is on the end here. This is the narrow feeder pipe. Okay? This comes out effectively into a venturi. Okay, so you've got expanding out here, and then this falls down. This again is into a one standard size of pipe, and then it's got an expanded area here and a drop down. And these parts of the pipe are really just for support, and you'll see the thing being constructed. So he's using this mechanism to preload the system. And the point is this is so simple to build, it's either going to work or it's not. These are standard PVC. You can get some PVC adhesive. Like I say, if I was watching this video, I'd think, what's the scam here? And, still I feel that there might be a scam. But knowing what is described by him and the serious analysis that he does, and knowing that ball lightning structures are being formed in the cavitation system, and knowing that there are several levels in which they operate. One is maybe to create disassociation of water. Well, not disassociation. Well, it does do that at an extremer level, but at the base level, it's causing water gas to be formed by pulling extra chi through, or by disrupting the weak polar bonds between water molecules. So you don't need nuclear level energy, you just need the production of water gas above the check valve, which will then push the water through over the hill and into up to a higher level. Okay. And so as he's assembling this, I will say that what I believe might be going on is that PVC can get charged, okay? And there will be friction with the water. Water going up that narrow tube will create a toroidal vortex. In fact, it will be like a Kármán vortex street, but in toroids that are traveling up that tube. Because it's a polar molecule, it's naturally charge separated, and you've got the end molecules of PVC are such that they will likely encourage the easy water or inverse easy water. It doesn't matter, actually. But charge separation within the polar charges of the water, that produces your toroidal vortex in the long, thin column. And what that will do, in my view, is for a proportion of that water, it may cause it to produce water gas. Okay? May cause it to produce water gas. And the water gas then tries to push back against the check valve and closes it. And the only way it can expand then is to push water uphill. Because water gas, as we know, is 1,617 times larger than water. So you only need to convert a minute amount of this water into water gas, and you will be able, and I'm going to skip on here because I don't want to play the whole video, but he's making a check valve here from a piece of rubber. That's his PVC glue here. So essentially this is, other than a hammer and PVC glue, a saw, and the stock PVC piping, that's all you're needing. So yeah, much more narrow tube. So as the water is forced up here, it will start to produce vortexes, okay? And as it comes over the top, the vortexes will still be produced in here. They will have a toroidal moment. They will have a back disruption beam. The back disruption beam and even the forward head of the torus will cause, in my view, some water gas to be synthesized. And you really only need a very small amount of water gas to be synthesized to push the water up against the check valve at the bottom. And that will cause water to come over. The water to come over will then pull a bit more water up. And the point is like, I almost don't care whether this is fake, because it's so simple to try and replicate if what you're seeing is, you know, what it is. There you go. It's not just in Thailand. This one is, I think this is Thailand. Yes, I think this guy is Thai, and he does a whole range of them. But there's lots of other people doing this. Okay? So he's showing like different ways to get it restarted once he's shut it off. So, you know, unless there's water flow, I don't think you're going to get this either toroidal moment or pressure-related cavitation energy. The toroidal moment, like I say, weakens, in my view, the molecular bonds between water, causing it a proportion of it to turn to water gas. I think this is going on in the water spout from the 1969 NOAA photo. I think that is also what's going on in some HHO systems, or particularly in the vibration system of Dr. Roy Shinamasa. I think it's a component of what's going on. And in this case, the water gas is able to lead to this very phenomenal and useful practical application of the toroidal moment. That's it. So I think this might cost about $40 in equipment from scratch, not having everything. I've got the hammer, I've got some of the PVC glue, I need some more, and the PVC piping maybe less than that. And I think it's worth having a go. I think it's just worth having a go. It does look like an avalanche of bullshit to me. Yes, Hales, right? It does. But, you know, that's how many people felt for most of history about nuclear transmutation going on in cavitation. Really, the Russian scientific community mocked Kladov until after he died, when they found out he was right by using the now useless hydrowave biological and chemical destruction technology, because they ran out of weapons to destroy. So they thought, well, Kladov said cavitation can do this. Ours is a very good cavitator. Let's see if it can do it. And they remediated a nuclear isotope. I think strontium-90. Kladov had done cesium-137. So, even for people that knew this guy, for most of his research, they ignored him. So, and everyone ignored Griggs. So, there we go. All right. It's so simple, it would be rude not to try. And, just because you know already it doesn't work is not a reason to not try when it's that simple. Honestly. Anyway, so that is... Mr. Hales, I haven't replicated this already, but he's made a very good argument, and the same argument for nuclear energy, which we know cavitation can do, because we've got several systems, and when we verify that the Vega Valley Replication 1 is producing the signatures of ball lightning, we'll know that is doing it. And we've replicated it in ultra experiments. We know Benjamin Huang has sequentially replicated the process. So we know that it can do cavitation that leads to transmutation. Okay? And it's the same process that's occurring in ball lightning. We know for certain. Okay? We do. There's a lot of people out there that would call this a whole load of, male cow excrement. But we know for certain. Okay? The thing is that in this instance, I don't believe, like in the wind hex, you need to get to the nuclear level of energy. You're just using the charge separation in the toroidal multi-axis shear that leads to the disruption zone, which is able to, and along with the kind of like Ukon of Asara, those areas are able to manipulate matter in non-thermal ways to change their phases. So in the case of metal, it turns it to like a jelly, like we saw in John Hutchison's system, or causes different dissimilar materials to interfere with each other. And in the case of a water spout, or in HHO generation, it's converting it to water gas. And the water gas is actually, to a degree, persistent, okay? You need to kind of like break the over-energized nature of the water so that it can return to ordinary water. And you can see these kind of things going on in the videos that we shared of the testing of Amaza's gas in 2019. Sometimes magic is real and it's just science. So it's rude for us not to do that. Okay, so that is what I'm talking about with the nuclear siphon, as it were. Now, another point to add here is, for those that might be considering this male cow excrement, I described what I believed was going on here in this singing bowl, where normal hydrodynamics absolutely cannot explain what happens when these water droplets leap out of the surface of the water. Okay? Leap out of the surface of the water. They launch themselves apparently against gravity. However, you could imagine, and I showed that I suspected this was because a toroidal flow is being caused at interference waves of standing waves, interference points of standing waves. Okay, and it's completely logical with what's going on in a singing bowl, and what we see in other processes, that you get the toroidal structure forming and it launches itself in the air, and potentially that is because maybe it's converted part of the water into water gas, and it literally propels itself out of the air, or it's just coming through the water at such velocity that it keeps going and breaks the surface tension of the water. So I think what we observed here in these experiments, which I replicated in a number of commercially available singing bowls, actually show part of the same process that is able to do what is being called a nuclear siphon, but I believe you don't need to go to the level of the nuclear siphon. Okay, so frankly, the application for this is phenomenal. And, you know, for the Russian Academy of Sciences, a senior professor there, a well-published and extremely well-cited professor, to take our work with that level of seriousness, even just on the initial publication level, before I was able to publish the analysis of the materials in flux capacitor. That is, it's frankly a deep honor. And for it to explain a technology like this, or be on the periphery of explaining a technology like this, which potentially, if you had 1,000 of these along a riverbed and they raised the water by a meter, and then you had 500 that raised it another meter, and then you had 250 that raised it another meter, if you get it up to 10 meters or whatever, there's a real potential with certain types of generator to generate on demand quite a lot of electricity, or to use the same process to irrigate water without electricity, which kind of like you're getting free electricity by not having to use electricity, to irrigate plants or move water levels up and down. So yes, Alex del Castillo, yes, a water hammer can do the same thing. But the point about this is that a water